Ooh, looking good on my end.
We
How's it
are
looking on your?
live. Wait.
We're live. Okay.
We're live.
Awesome. Oh, I think we're live. So we're live out there in live land. Okay. All right. Sarah's kind of connecting.
Go right ahead. We're reconfiguring for this week. So
okay, fantastic. So we're live. This is Sarah and Hadass. I'm Hadass, that's Sarah. And we are starting our series, Grow Forward. And Grow Forward actually is our business series where we start helping visionaries, and we help entrepreneurs and small businesses. And we help people that want to build an influence platform. And what is an influence platform? An influence platform is really four major components of an influence platform: is online courses, podcast, YouTube channel, and writing a book. Or having a blog, something written. Those are the four main components of building a very, very strong influence platform. And in addition to that, what drives that influence platform is having a very successful or building a successful social media platform, because the influence flows through social media. So we have been helping organizations and companies do this. Sarah has been working at this for 10 years, and I have been driving this equally, probably even a little bit longer. So this is what we do. We create content. However, in our, I'm stuck. In our communication with different organizations and leaders, and working with people one-on-one in coaching, we find that everybody gets stuck. And one of the things that has caused us to create the Block It Planner, and I'm going to be showing that to you after we talk a lot about sabotage, destructing self-sabotage. But this Block It Planner that Sarah and I have created is specifically designed to help move your life forward. Every other planner in the world helps you organize your life, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just gets organized. Well, it gets organized for a week or two, and then
you have your checklists.
Yeah, everything gets reduced back to tasks.
For every task, the task-oriented person out there. I'm task. So
she is absolutely tasked. We actually have a lot of fun with this. If I actually tell everybody, if I give Sarah Sarah, let's do this, man, she is on it. She'll have it done in a day. If she gives me a task list, you know what? Hell is going to freeze over, and there's going to be waterfalls.
And you will be found in Iceland somewhere digging for gold.
I have to actually operate according to purpose and vision. Very different way of looking at it. And what we do with the Block It Planner is actually we connect vision and purpose to task. And it's a game changer. And that was one of the first things when Sarah called me and she started using this, because I had created the digital version early on. And Sarah likes paper. And very honestly, all of my mentors and anyone who really wants to move forward with an idea, a thought, and bring it to fruition and literally release it into the world, you need to think on paper. I find that thinking on, you can actually transfer that thought process into the web world, but your personal thinking on paper is the game changer. So Sarah really likes paper, and I was doing a lot of digitizing. And so this is how we got started. And it was like such an aha moment. She says, oh my God, I actually am excited to do these tasks because I'm not just doing a task like a robot. I am connecting it to the vision of what we're working on, to the purpose. And for the first time, I'm excited to do it. Well, she's not the only one. One of our Blockit customers now spoke to me just the other day. She had been stuck on a project that she had wanted to do for almost a year. And she just couldn't get the motivation to do it. Well, she got the planner and she started going through the psychology and how to do it. And she said, oh my gosh, I am so excited about working on this project. She says, I can't believe that I'm actually moving the project forward. She says, I haven't been able to even touch it for a year. So this is what happens when you actually take the task and put it together with the vision and the purpose. And how we do in there, I'm just giving some intro while Sarah is getting us all squared away in technical land.
It's good.
All right.
It's good.
So that is Blockit. And so when we talk about, and that's really where we're going to go today. Last week we talked about procrastination, overcoming procrastination. Well, procrastination is actually one of the number one signs of self-sabotage. It's so if you struggle with procrastination, you are also going to have moments every day or in every project or every situation you encounter where your programming might be you get to a certain point and then all of a sudden you will self-sabotage. And many of us, not all of us, struggle with self-sabotage at some point, somewhere in either relationships, in taking care of our health, in building our business, in really personal relationships, business relationships, kind of moving forward to a place of security and success. And the reason I kind of sighed there is I had a flashback of a memory. And that flashback of the memory was 20 years ago, 23 years ago, probably. And I was sitting in it was a conference, like it was more of a morning breakfast, and it was in U.S.-Israel relations. And there I was just sitting at a table with some friends and having a nice breakfast. And a leader of an organization got up on the stage and he mentions my name. And he says, I would like her to come up here. And he starts talking about the work I had done on a global scale to try and thwart the disengagements of Gush Katif. And on my way up to that platform, I thought to myself, no, this is the worst thing that could happen to me, because every single time I'm in the limelight, every time I'm lifted up by other people, I'm going to go through so much on the other side. And I will end up self-sabotaging to the point where I will actually move myself out of the limelight so far nobody can even find me. I did this so many times, but that particular time on my way up, I thought, gosh, I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing, but this is going to blow it. It's just going to blow it. It shouldn't have blown it, but that's self-sabotaging. So on that note, Sarah, how are we doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Okay. All right. So procrastination is really number one sign. Another very interesting, it's not necessarily a sign, but it's a pattern of thinking. And if you think this way, you definitely struggle with self-sabotage. And when I talk about self-sabotage, I want to actually bring in one more element, and that is the other sabotager. And that is friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, cohorts. You know, here you are trying to stay focused, you're trying to get healthy, you've got a plan, you know where you're going to the gym every day, you're getting your life together, you've got your schedule, you want to, things you want to get done for the day, and here they come. They come with their donuts. That just happened to me. They come with their donuts. They come with their lunches. They come with their projects that they want you to help them with, right? So pretty soon you're doing their projects, not your projects. And before you know it, you have been so derailed. And when you think about it, you actually allowed it and they enabled it. They didn't come to you thinking, I'm going to sabotage her day. No, they didn't say that. But they know your disciplines most of the time. So when they bring that stuff into your space, they know that little temptation, or they know that, you're going to get a little derailed by that. So they're not completely innocent here. But presumption is a thought pattern that leads us to say, well, why not? I can start tomorrow. If I don't get that done today, I can do it tomorrow. Now, hold on. That is true. When you're working on projects and you're putting your best foot forward, there will be tomorrow. But that's okay because you are planning that into tomorrow. But I'm talking about especially, let's say, diet. Let's give that a good example. That let's say you're doing lower carb, healthy low carb, not keto, but healthy low carb. You want to stay away from all those processed foods and whatever. And somebody walks in with a big old cake, right? And you say, it's all right. I'll start tomorrow. Or you're writing a book. And you know that you need to somehow block a little bit of time every day to write that book. But you say to yourself, I'll start writing tomorrow. I'll work on that chapter tomorrow. Tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're only a day away. Well, tomorrow is actually very presumptuous in your thinking. It's a pattern. And when we stop connecting our outcomes to tomorrow and start connecting them to vision and purpose, then we actually change that pattern of thinking. We don't say, I'll do it tomorrow. We say, okay, I'm going to work towards it today, and then I'm going to get excited because I'm going to be even working towards it again tomorrow. And that is a game changer in deconstructing your self-sabotage, which we're going to be talking about. So we have procrastination, we have presumption. What else do you have there, Sarah?
Well, I think that we have to also remind everybody about the root of procrastination, which is fear. So a lot of self-sabotage is, again, rooted in fears. And I don't know when you want to get into this, but I was thinking of cognitive dissonance. And also dissociation. These are things that we will do in our lives or whatever that definitely disconnect us from where we want to be and what we're doing right now. So the reality of where we are, but the reality of where we are is not where we want to be, but we're off somewhere else. I think of like magical thinking, you know, this I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll use, for example, a budget. You know, we want to be on a budget. We know budgeting is good. We know that budgeting will keep us on track. But then we're like, well, I know it's going to be better next month, so I can go ahead and buy this thing on credit. Or, you know, I'm having a really bad day, so I'm going to go shopping and, you know, charge all this stuff. And right there, it's this magical, that's cognitive dissonance. The reality is the budget doesn't allow for it now, but you're dissociated into this magical thinking of it'll be okay tomorrow, you know, instead of right now, like you're talking about the exercise and the diet. You're taking your life in your own hands. And that's, to me, what the Block It Planner is all about. It's about taking that vision and those projects and those things you want to move forward. These are things that we've always wanted to do, that they're big goals, they're big dreams, and we put it off, and we know, okay, I'll put it off till tomorrow, you know, and then we never, you know, capture that into our own life for these reasons of self-sabotage. And a lot of times it's rooted in fear and things that may have happened to us in our childhoods. It may be ingrained because of things we were told. It could be generational. It could be trauma. And they're just these subconscious thoughts and patterns that we find ourselves in that we really do need to begin to uncover and be aware and mindful so that we can make and do the appropriate things to move us forward.
Okay, so Sarah just got into a topic called cognitive dissonance. And I think before we go on, because I do want to mention, I want to also talk about that with her and with you, because she brought out some really, really good points. But there's also one area of cognitive dissonance that I think you're going to get really excited about. But before we do that, I think we better define what it is. A lot of people may not know what cognitive dissonance is. All right. So let me share one of the definitions of cognitive dissonance with you. And that is a term used to describe the mental discomfort that results from holding two conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. So let me put that on paper here. Two conflicting beliefs. And that is, or values, okay, or attitudes. So people tend, and I'm going to put that up in a minute, but let me just continue to read that. People tend to seek consistency in their attitudes and perceptions. So this conflict causes feelings of unease or discomfort. Okay, so let me put this up here. Okay, cognitive dissonance, there it is. Two conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. Now, Sarah just mentioned a big one, and that is the difference between keeping a budget and wanting to shop. All right. And because shopping creates dopamine, And dopamine makes us happy. So we like to be happy, right? Okay. So, and budgets don't create dopamine. They create sobriety and a lot of work. That's what budgets create. God. Okay. So, so we've got two conflicting beliefs or attitudes or values. Now, it is interesting. Let me read the second part of that. It says here that people tend to seek consistency in their attitude and perception. So this conflict causes a feeling of unease and discomfort. Let me actually make that a little bit simpler for you. All right. We've got these conflicting beliefs, but what we want is we want this symmetry. What we're looking for is belief. Let me change this. I hear belief equals action. This is what we're looking for. Belief equals action.
Congruency between the belief and the action. And what cognitive dissonance is, you have this belief, but it's not aligning with your actions.
Exactly. And so I'm going to put that up there. What you want is cognitive congruency. So we want our, we want our thoughts. I'm going to remove it from belief to just the idea of our thoughts, right? To match our actions. And the self-sabotage comes, or when we're looking at the aspect of cognitive dissonance and its role in self-sabotage, it comes when you are not united in your heart and your mind over what is the proper action at the moment. It's interesting that one of the things that helps you unite that is how you handle your morning. This is a real key. When you take, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Now you can, if you're a person of faith and you pray, all right, that helps you actually kind of get yourself spiritually acclimated for the day, right? But you also have to get acclimated in every area that you are wanting to see a forward motion in. So if it's in your business, you need to actually think through how you want that day to go and get it on paper. If it's your eating, one of the things when I get off track on my eating protocol, I will plug in a podcast, or I will put on a YouTube video, or I'll actually even listen to one of my own videos, all right, on health, to get me recentered in the morning. Because how I start my morning is going to completely determine how I end my day. And so many people jump out of bed, grab the coffee, grab the breakfast. They may have a little quick prayer and they're off. And they have not considered the areas that they are wanting to really shine in for that day, what they want their focus to be on.
Like the day is now running you instead of you running your day. That's kind of how I think about that. When I first met Kim, now Hadass, she did this was a long time ago. I would say back in 2016, 2017, she used to go live on Facebook. And during that time, I was going through this awakening and just a really hard time in my life and everything like that. But she would do these different activities or book reviews or whatever it happened to be. Well, she did one on what was that book called? The Slav sisters.
Oh no, get your act together by the Slav sisters.
Get your act together by the Slav sisters. Well, this is talking about, your home and decluttering and things like that. And I know we're kind of going off topic, but it really does pertain, I promise it. So one of the things that I began to do by engaging and putting into practice some of these things was cleaning my kitchen or tidying it up before I went to bed, so that when I woke up the next morning, I felt like in my mind, I had this peace that, okay, I can start my day fresh. And that was one less thing cluttering my brain, like, oh, I got to do that later. Oh, I got to clean the kitchen. Oh, I have to do the dishes. And I began to take control of my life. And when you start to take control of your life, and that's really what this cognitive dissonance does, it connects what you believe and who you want to be with your actions. And it could be as simple as, doing the dishes before bed. But it also, when Hadass was talking about self-sabotage, when a friend comes around and you're on a diet and they want to eat a donut and they bring you a box of donuts. Well, they may know that you're on a diet. They may not know, but it's not their responsibility to keep your boundaries. It's our responsibility to keep our boundaries. And so why would we give in to a friend with their box of donuts? Well, because of fear. And it's these underlying issues of fears, really. It could be, not wanting to disappoint somebody or whatever. And we neglect and sabotage our own growth, our own success, because of these internal belief systems and things we've been living out for years. So,
it's so funny you mentioned the Get Your Act Together by the Slav sisters. The way that I actually stumbled on that book, I was living overseas, and I always overbooked myself, always. And in this particular case, I had overbooked myself to the point where I actually had two simultaneous seminars that I was running at the same time. And I knew this was a disaster because I was going to be able to give a lot of my attention to one seminar, but one seminar was not going to have my attention, and anything could go wrong there. And everything and anything did go wrong. And one of the leaders that was one of the speakers, and a leader of this particular group and in the seminar, came up to me afterwards, and he said, "You need to get yourself organized." He said, "You are too overbooked. You can't do this because it doesn't work." And I said, "Oh, I know it." Well, what was interesting is, this is such a great story, and I'd forgotten about it until now. So here I was, and I thought, I need something. I need a planner. I need something that's going to help me figure this out so I don't overbook myself like this. And I looked at all these planners, and because, I've said this before, but a planner is not ever going to help me. Not ever, ever, ever. A regular planner will never help me. And how do I know? Because I actually graduated from Dale Carnegie in time. I mean, come on.
I've been there. I wrote the book.
Folks, I did. And that means I was the one schlepping the daytimer every single day. I was an international, I actually was an international sales and marketing director. I flew all over the world with that book, right? Let me tell you something. For this personality here, this was not the ultimate tool. And so here I am in overseas, and I'm like, I got to find the right thing. And I'm going through every planner. I'm going through every book on organization. And I'm like, no. And all of a sudden there was one book, Get Your Act Together by the Slav Sisters. But it was the tagline that got me for the overwhelmed, overbooked, and overworked. I'm like, oh my God,
that's me. That's me. That's me.
And that was, in fact, by the way, if you ever, I put it here, Get Your Act Together. And we'll put a link down there. That book has got to be the funniest book I ever read in my life. I remember falling off a couch. I was laughing so hard reading that book.
It was hilarious when you were going live, because there was a chapter in the book about we all have that craft sitting in the craft closet that we have schlepped across the country 6 moves in a row, and we keep our crochet bag because one day we're gonna make the blanket. We're gonna crochet this blanket. We used to crochet 20 years ago. We haven't picked up a crochet needle, 20 years. And we're like, we're gonna crochet the blanket, And this is cognitive dissonance. I want to make the blanket, but I'm not doing it. And I'm keeping my crochet.
Oh my God. It's like when you go out and buy the treadmill, and the treadmill becomes an extra coat hanger. It happens in every home. And I have a friend, she was so excited, calls me up, and she says, hey, you got to come over. My husband just bought me an elliptical machine. And I went, and so I go there for Shabbat at least once or twice a month, right? And there are all the coaches on the elliptical machine. Okay, so this is the real world, folks.
This is self-sabotage at its finest.
And in fact, one of the stories that absolutely got me in the book, because I understood that I did that all the time. And I actually do not do that very often anymore because of the book. I've actually implemented much of that book for years and years and years, plus other mentors and coaching that I have been working on these issues for years, decades, a couple decades. Well, let me tell you this one story though, and you may be able to resonate, not just Sarah, but our audience here. And that is, so one of the sisters, her husband, one morning, he asked her, he said, honey, what are you going to do today? And she said, well, maybe I'm going to clean the house, and I'm going to make sure the kitchen is done. And he turns to her and he says, I think if you could just do one thing for me today. She said, well, what is it, dear? And he said, get groceries. I'm gonna get groceries. So she's like on a mission now, and her other sister calls, and she says they're unveiling a baby elephant at the zoo today. So why don't we call all the kids and we'll go to the zoo? And she said, no, My husband told me I have to get groceries today.
Yeah, write this down. Distractions. This is another reason for self-sabotage. Distraction.
It's a sign. It's a real sign.
It's a huge problem. Like we live in distractedness. We are being programmed to be distracted. We are walking around. Every person I would bet has some form of ADHD because of this new programming. So I don't know well, we do know we have these skills that we're learning and we're putting into place to help us ground ourselves. This was the other thing I wanted to say was Hadass and I are both INFJs. So we have this in the intuition, I believe it's the NI, it's the second function, it's the dominant function of our personality type. And so with that, it is very abstract thought. We could see patterns. We can go out into the world and we can immediately begin to connect the dots, and we can dream up these grand visions for projects, for companies, for whatever. But our fourth function, which is SE, this is the actual physical world. This is the planning. This is the groundedness. And so for us, and it might not be a challenge for you, but for me, it's being grounded in the 3D. And really for planning, that's what it helps me to do, is to ground myself in the 3D. We are being programmed to live in the abstract. With meta coming, that's a whole nother conversation, but to ground ourselves in the morning, as Hadass had said, and things like that, these are some of the skills that we can begin to implement to deprogram ourselves and move forward.
I am going to finish that story on the elephants. I know because somebody out there is saying, "Oh yeah, but I want to hear what happened."
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, because I'm going to come back to actually the end of the story. Takes me right back to what you said. Actually, I really appreciated your input there. So she actually succumbs to her sister, and they go to the elephant unveiling with all the kids, and all of a sudden, the zoo, they have the announcement, will be closing in 15 minutes. Closing in 15 minutes. And I mean, she's horrified. She doesn't have any groceries. Her husband's going to be home soon. And so they get in the car, and her sister says, "Don't worry. We'll stop at Billy Bob's and we'll get a bunch of burgers. And at least if you can get your husband fed, he'll be a lot less cantankerous, and you can get groceries later tomorrow." And so they go and they get all the burgers and whatever, and they get home, and there's a police car in the driveway. And when they get out of the car, the man says, "Ma'am," he said, "your neighbor called and they thought they saw somebody breaking into your house. So we are here to, just to see if anybody has been breaking in your house." And he says, "Someone could have really broken into your house. Come with me, ma'am." And so she gets out of the car, and they get into the house, and the cop says, he says, "Ma'am, look at what they did to your house." And she says, "Oh, it looks exactly like that.
This is my house, how it is." Oh no.
And her husband pulls in.
Oh.
And so let me tell you something. That's the end of the story. Actually, there's a lot more to it, but that is the end of the story.
Your audio
And-
cut out there just a little bit, but it's okay.
Oh,
We heard it. We heard it. Yeah.
are you sure? They took the groceries.
Yeah.
All right, that's what he said to your husband. He goes, honey, did they take anything? Yeah, the groceries. They took the groceries.
Oh, no, we didn't hear that. They took the groceries.
Yeah, that's what she says. What? Did they take it? She said,
She got out of it.
So she got out of it. So anyways, but when you look at that scenario right there, that is just really, really a typical scenario of literally procrastinating, knowing you have to do something, but she didn't have a plan. And because she really didn't have a plan, anybody and everybody could jump right in to her life, and she could easily follow, whoever had a better idea than cleaning up the house. I mean, that doesn't take a lot of rocket science.
Not a plan, and it sounds like weak boundaries. No,
exactly. And
no is an answer.
I'm sure that her and her sister, especially her, she was an INFJ.
INFJ.
That's an introvert.
Intuition.
Intuition and feeling. Yeah, I feel it, right? Judgment is really a very good trait because they can very, very quickly discern between what's right and wrong, right? It's a very, very strong moral compass. However, this is an INFJ, and we actually put the link in for our procrastination series. If you didn't get that yet, you're going to want to make sure that you look at the link below. We actually have a procrastination guide, a tool with a page that will help you. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, how it ties into diminishing or deconstructing self-sabotage. But we have a page for you. And with that, we created a 10 minutes video, a 5-part mini series to go with the guide. And it will really help you understand the issues behind procrastination. Well, now that we've talked about some of the signs, some of the issues, and we'll hit on a few more of those, but especially this issue of two conflicting beliefs. Now, I want to share something that is different, but that's why we're here. We got to start thinking different if we want different results. And so conflicting beliefs and conflicting values, all right, attitudes, really is more when we're disconnected to our purpose or our vision, and we're more connected to just our own selves. Like our person has a lot of drives. And if left unchecked, it will drive you crazy. It drives, all right. It just drives you crazy. Because you're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? All right. But conflicting beliefs is not a horrible thing, in the sense that when you have two conflicting beliefs, two different perspectives on something, what you want to do is you want to recognize that. All right. I need to do this, but I want to do that. I need to do this, but I want to do that. And in between, when you start to put those two things together, all right, the need to do this and the want to do that, okay, there's going to be, it's like putting a magnet. When you put a positive and a negative together, they can go, but then if you put like a negative, the closer you get, there's like a force that works here, right? And then you can't see the force, but there's a magnetic force that's created. Well, when you put conflicting beliefs together, positive and a negative, I need to do this, I want to do that. When you put them together, something is actually birthed right there. Not a conclusion of what you should do, but an understanding of the outcome. If I do this, this will be the outcome. If I do that, this will be the outcome. But what if I do this so I'm able to go out and do that? What if instead of saying it's either or, what if we put them together and now they become part of the solution and not the problem? So I need to do this. And so to reward myself for doing this, I'm going to go do what I want to do. Now we're not in a conflict. We're actually congruent with ourselves. And this is huge. And one of the ways that you start reaching this is by doing something that we talk a lot about. In fact, we have one whole video on it in the Block It Planner signature video series. When you get the Block It Planner, you get the video series. We talk about the brain dump. And the brain dump is where we start to think on paper. And we're going to talk, we'll talk about that. But we start to put this conflict, all the things we have to do, everything that is in tension with each other in our minds and in our hearts, it all gets down on paper. And then we can start going through it by category. And we can start organizing it. You're not organizing your life. You're organizing your thoughts. And by doing this, all of a sudden, the things that become most important begin to pop out. The things that motivate you begin to shine through. And then you can start connecting these conflicting things together. And one of the most amazing things begins to happen is that everything, negative and positive, begins to move you forward. It becomes the wind underneath your wings. Instead of you looking at negative as negative and getting stuck,
Right.
Negative turns into a positive, and it becomes a force to move you. This is the amazing thing. First, about the system we've developed, it's because we've been working at this for years. But this is the amazing thing about thinking on paper. One of the tools in your arsenal to actually start deconstructing the self-sabotaging. All right, Sarah.
I'm processing. I'm processing, but I will say, I have a literal thinking chair where I process, but I will say that some of my biggest aha moments have been in brain dumping and brainstorming, because like Hadass had mentioned, it's like now I'm taking my thought life, it's an abstract, almost spiritual place, right? And harnessing the reality of the power within me to deconstruct those thoughts and put them into categories like in the brain dump and begin to work through them, come up with solutions. like it's no longer just this tension in my mind. There's always these millions of thoughts that we think. I should have got my pocket planner out last night when I couldn't sleep because I had so many things bumping around in my mind. But yes, and I will say, when I started to plan differently with thinking of things in blocks, this was gold to me, because I began to feel so much more productive and fulfilled, because I saw that one vision, that one thing that I wanted to complete, and I broke it down, and now it's complete. And I'm like, whoa, that whole thing is done, where before it was just a list. And the list could have some things from this project, some things from that project, but I couldn't see how far the progress was coming in project A, B, or C. And so I always felt a million years away from completing anything.
And that this is, Sarah just said something very, very important. And she said, I couldn't see the end. I didn't see where the project was. And I am, on a personal note, if I can't see, I can't move. And when we talk about procrastination, we talk about self-sabotage. You would be surprised at how it's connected to the lack of vision. Again, I actually, goals are not, first of all, it's not even a good word for me. I've never been able to reach a goal. And I don't know how many of you out there in goal land have ever reached their goals, but I don't know how many of you on January 1st are going to write all your resolutions for the next 2 weeks.
This is a program. Gonna plug into the New Year program, and we're gonna self-sabotage in 14 business days.
And that's not to say, when I say that about goals, that's not to say that I don't have dreams and things that I have desired and prayed for years, or quickly come into fruition. But whenever I put a goal to something, I found that it just became more elusive and more elusive. But when I connect it, I break it down into incremental, I deconstruct the big vision, because I'm a visionary. I deconstruct it, I break it down, and it becomes an action, something I need to do to get somewhere. It's the road that I'm traveling on. And to stay on that road and to get to that destination, this is how I need to work it. Well, so I do reach destinations, but the increments along the way, I stopped calling them goals a long time ago, because it just seemed like every time I attached the word goal to it, it was like it just became more and more elusive.
Yes.
Well, when we're talking about self-sabotage and we're talking about brain dumping, let me show you something. So we actually, one of the things that we said about the planner is that it helps you get unstuck. And this is why we're talking about self-sabotage, because if you are somebody who self-sabotages, that means that usually you will self-sabotage and then you're stuck.
Yes.
So let me give an example. How many of you have started a diet? You've gone, you're doing great. You're 3 days into it. You're doing great. And then, the friend comes, the lunch comes, the whatever comes, and the temptation comes. And you give in, and you say to yourself, I'll start tomorrow, right? However, what happens now? Can you leave that lunch or that moment and just pick right back up and start your diet, most people cannot.
Right.
People, a lot of dieters, mentors in this field will say, don't feel guilty, don't feel bad, just start
it's
the
the
next
failure.
meal. But you're kicking in, you're reinforcing rejection and failure. You're reinforcing it every time you do that. I'm a failure.
I'm just gonna fail. So why am I even trying?
That's it. And then the problem is, once you kick yourself out of what your body is trying to see, your body, when you start in a healthy lifestyle, your body is trying to create a system. It is a system, but it's trying to regenerate that system, so that it can be optimized. So every time you kick it out, right, then it's like the system itself is saying, ooh, I have now an opportunity to eat another donut, because now that she's not keeping me in line, I get to go out and play. So the next morning you go out and, she's like a thin thing anyways. She can eat a piece of chocolate. Anyway, did you go out and instead of, having, either kind of pushing your breakfast aside or having something healthy, you get the croissant. Because the day before you're stuck.
Yes.
And you don't think you're stuck, but you're stuck. You're stuck because as soon as you connected the action to failure, you became paralyzed.
Yes.
You don't even think it. It's subconscious. And you actually have to go through a process of deconstructing what happened. And you can do that in your mind, or you can also do it on paper. But you have to go, what happened? What just happened? So what was the trigger? And this is where the deconstruction comes in. So you go back to the moment, and you actually write down. I really believe in writing these things down, because once they're out of your brain does not hold on. The way your brain works, once a thought gets transferred to paper, it actually doesn't hold on to the thought anymore. It's the most bizarre thing. That's why we actually teach you that when you're distracted while you're in focus time, every thought that distracts you, write it down. Because once you write it down, the mind actually thinks you have taken action. And once it thinks it's taken action, it doesn't need to be there anymore. So when you go back to deconstruct,
I want to say one thing in there. You said trigger. So I am on a quest with this stuff. Okay. Like, I'm just on a quest for enlightenment or something around these topics. Okay. Because I do self-sabotage. I have had a history of procrastination, things like that. I still do in some areas, but the trigger is, to me, always tied to an emotion.
Always. It always is.
Always tied to an emotion. And I don't know, I don't want to say we, but I feel like a lot of people do not know how to process and sit with their emotions. And so if we are able to deconstruct and say, why was I feeling that way? Even sitting in that feeling and saying, why was I feeling that way? And start to unravel that thing, you will find the end of the string and either make peace with it or make a plan.
I agree. And okay, let's just build on that a little bit, because so triggers, can actually set people off in psychology. A trigger can actually be something that's very negative. It'll set off a particular emotion, right? And that's kind of what Sarah was just saying, because it's attached. A trigger also can be something you personally put in place to
Yes.
create a particular outcome.
Yes.
And so I find that to be the most interesting thing when we start deconstructing self-sabotage, because we go back and we look at the scenario and you ask yourself, what was the emotion? What was the trigger? What was I trying to placate? I always use that word because I'm trying. What am I trying to placate? You know, is it my desire to eat that food, or is it my desire to, kind of people please? You know,
Yes.
Make sure that
Avoid conflict. Avoid conflict.
You know, what really is that emotion and trigger? And then once you identify it, the next question you want to ask yourself, and really it's a simple process. The problem is so often it's made so complicated. So what you want to ask yourself after you go back and you take a look at the scenario and you say, okay, what could I have done different that would have led to a different outcome? That's your question. And I could have said no, right? I could have said no. I could have said, okay, all right, I'm following this plan, and the plan says that this is what I should do, X, Y, Z. So I could have followed the plan. So what was it that, kind of took me off? But at the same time, what is that emotion? And for many, many, many of us, we're going to find at the core of so many of these emotional triggers is the desire to be accepted, the desire to be a part of something, to be in fellowship with something. And we also find that it's a desire very often to prove ourselves, or to not, when I say prove ourselves, that means that well, actually, let me just put that one aside. I think I'm going to put the prove ourselves, but we are proving it. We're like, I need to prove myself in this scenario. And yet we fall flat on our faces, because where have we turned? I'll just say this one thing. We turn inside instead of outside. Go ahead, Sarah.
And I know we're at the hour, but and this kind of ties in with what we talked about last week, and this proving ourselves. And kind of goes hand in hand with, I'm not worthy to succeed because of XYZ. We're waiting for somebody else to validate us, to tell us we are worthy, or we are accepted, or whatever it happens to be. But I think that right there is the key, really, of we have to feel worthy in ourselves, because we alone will be responsible for whether we bring our vision to pass or not. And for me, I don't think I have this fear of success so much, but I think I know that I have some worthy issues of, am I worthy of success? Am I worthy to achieve those things that are in my heart to achieve? And that goes way, way back. And I have been untangling that, but it is finding that worth and value in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that is, and the only way you can do that, and here's another real important understanding. You cannot, and you will never find in other people your own worth.
Right.
The only way that you will find your own worth is by taking action for your own life.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way.
There's
to
no
do
other
it.
way.
You cannot live vicariously through anyone else.
Right.
You take action. You start developing your skill sets for what your vision, your dream is. You start listening to programs like what we're doing right now, or and podcasts and mentors on people that have actually conquered different mindsets, and they show you, tell you, talk to you about what they've done. You start doing that and you start thinking differently. And this is how you start getting your worth.
Yes.
You actually have to see the areas that you feel like you're a failure, and you feel that that uncomfortableness between who you are and where you're headed. And then you start getting the skills, building the mindset, getting the skills, building the mindset and then what's going to happen as you do that, you start taking action.
Yes, kicking fear in the face. There's a YouTuber, he says, kick fear in the face.
But fear also, here's something really bizarre about fear, all right? The more prepared you are, the less fear you have.
It's true. It is true.
Fear is, I'm reminded, I'm a Torah scholar. And so I'm always in the Torah. People know me. I am, I have to give a shiur this week, and I'm always in the Torah. And so one of the things it says, you might have heard this before, but the people that don't have a vision, all right, they perish. However, the Hebrew doesn't say this at all. So when we're studying the Torah, we study in Hebrew. And the Hebrew says this: the people that don't have a vision or a purpose, they cast off all restraint. Oh my God, that is serious self-sabotage. Casting off restraint. You are sabotaging your victory, your success.
Right.
Because you're discouraged. You can't see where it's headed. And you don't know how to get there. You don't know how to get there. And this is the problem. This is a real problem. So when we talk about self-worth, we gotta get you a vision. We gotta start with, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then we start moving backwards. And we start deciding on, what are the skill sets you need to develop? What are the mindsets you need to develop to get there? And we do it incrementally. And it doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It happens over a period of time. It's the journey. You hear it, people say, enjoy the journey. Well, I'll tell you what, the journey is, today we drive on paved roads. But when you're building a business, you are not on paved roads. In fact, you can be on rocky roads.
There is no path.
Muddy roads. I told a story this week about my shoe when it got stuck in the mud. Mm-hmm. I was at a camping trip, and we were in the marshland, and I was with all my fellow students, and my boot got stuck in the mud, like stuck. You talk about getting stuck. And so the leader and the kids, they're pulling me. And I come out of the boot. The boot stays. I come out. We all fall in the mud. And then we got to get up, and the boot cannot get out of that mud. There's nobody can get that boot out of the mud. So I got to walk all the way back to the camp with no boot because it was stuck. But you know what? Sometimes we gotta leave the boot behind. And it gets stuck, but we gotta go. We have to get to our destination. And so I also I want to just I know we're kind of jumping.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up here in just a minute.
Well, we'll wrap up in just a minute, but it's okay. I want to just say also, let me just talk about, not talk about, in our summary, in our wrap up, let me share, again, I have a little sign here. I want to talk about these things, these signs that we are actually self-sabotaging. And this is a summary of what we talked about: procrastination, presumption. We didn't really get on perfectionism, but that's a real good one. That when you can't let something go because it's not perfect, all right, that's a good sign that you're sabotaging yourself. All right. We talked about distraction. Another one is rationalizing a decision. So let me just say a couple of these before we go. We won't go into the details, but when you try to justify or rationalize a decision, all right, that's a sign of cognitive dissonance, and that's a sign that you are actually potentially self-sabotaging whatever you're working on. So, and that, let me just stop one more. That is one thing. I think if I have made major progress in my life, it's on that. I actually less and less try to ever rationalize or justify a decision. I make less and less excuses. And I say, you know what? It's the way it was. This is the decision I made, and this is the outcome of it. And I cannot rationalize it unless I was sick or, I really had something, serious. So, and the other signs are if you experience guilt. If you experience guilt and regret every time you have this incongruence between what you should do and what you are doing, that's self-sabotage. You want to go back, deconstruct it, right? And ask yourself, what could I have done different? And then what are you going to do with that? You're going to write it down. You are going to put in action to the thought. And when you start putting actions by writing things down or taking steps, you will be shocked at how you begin to reprogram your brain and your heart. All right, Sarah.
Well, I think that we could definitely come back to this topic even for the next week or so if we found that. Actually, I do think it would be worthwhile, because we can introduce maybe a simple tool that we can give out to everyone to help them deconstruct. And so I think
let me say this, in our procrastination, and yes, I think we can put a tool together, and a pretty cool tool, because I didn't even talk about the fear of missing out, FOMO. That's my biggest one. It's when I was a little girl, I never wanted to go to bed, ever, like never, because I was afraid I would miss something. And we can put a tool together so you won't miss out on anything. But in the procrastination guide, we actually have a sheet where you write your story. Mm-hmm. And it actually, you actually work through the actions you need to take that you're not taking. And actually, self-sabotage is actually almost the opposite. You're actually taking an action that you shouldn't be taking. That's what self-sabotage is. So in procrastination, that's a sign of self-sabotage. You need to take the action. When you're self-sabotaging, you're taking an action that is getting you stuck so you don't move forward. So you need to not take that action, right? But we have a thing where you write the story, you take the action, you identify the fear, and then you write out the outcome. And it's a real powerful tool. And we have that available for you regarding procrastination.
Yes, the link will be below.
And we'll design something. Yeah, why don't we do that, Sarah? That's a great idea. We'll get you a tool. We'll talk about it next week. We'll summarize, talk about it, and talk a lot more about deconstruction.
Yes.
And we covered a lot of the signs and what happens, and we talked a little bit about the deconstruction. So we can kind of that.
Part 2. Join us next week, Thursday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for joining us, Hadass. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with you today, and I hope that it has helped somebody in some way, in a profound way, in a small way, and they can start to put some of these things in practice.
Thank you. Thank you. And let me just say, if you've enjoyed this, or even just a little bit, if you've enjoyed it, make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels that we are out. We want you to like and subscribe and join us. Also, check out our blog and planner. It's on both Shopify and Amazon. We have the links below. This planner, we are going to be showing you really how you can build a very successful vision and business in 2023 using this. And check that out. Make sure you get the PDF for our Overcoming Procrastination Guide. You will love it with that mini series. And stay with us, because we will see you next week. We'll have more tools. We're very excited. We hope you're excited, and we're looking forward to getting to know you even more. Our community will be launching at some point in January, where you'll be able to actually get inside of our community. But we're waiting to get access to that right now. It's a new tool we have in our arsenal, and we're waiting for access. So when we build that out, you'll be the first to know. So anyways, so Sarah, thank you. And thank you for your input. Anything else you want to add to it before we go? This has been so delightful today.
It has. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Yes.
Signing out. This is Sarah and Hadass.